What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Wisdom Wayne podcast. I am your host, Matt Velvet. Hi, how are you? Today we are going to be talking about storytelling. So I just finished a book that Dalton and Josh sent me, my friends. It was called Running with Scissors by Augusten Burroughs. And it was a really wild, crazy, unexpected book. It was a memoir about this gay man's experience of dealing with a mentally ill parent, and an alcoholic parent. Not relatable to me at all. But I got through the book and it was really good. I really liked his style and the way he incorporated humor into it as well while sharing his story. And, I've been thinking about starting to write my own story and my own kind of memoir. And so I was feeling really inspired while reading this book. And then when I got to the end, there was an excerpt from another book by him, which I ordered on Amazon because I started reading a little bit of it, and it was talking about AA and sobriety, which is something that I'm currently going through and, eventually want to share my story about that. So I thought it was very apropos. And then Dalton and Josh sent me a second book. They're like, read Running with Scissors first, so I did. And then the other book is called Dry, which I just started last night. And lo and behold, it's about his beginning stages of sobriety. So it's very interesting. Obviously, they probably sent that to me for a reason. But I went into these books very blindly. I had no idea what they were about. I had no idea about the author. And I like going into things blindly because it's more exciting and more fun. I remember one time I actually went to Universal with Dalton, and there was this new Harry Potter ride called something about Hagrid's Ride or whatever, something along those lines. And I had never seen the Harry Potter movies. Actually, Joey Babylon, whenever I was with him in LA, he started having me watch the movies. And I think we got to maybe the fifth one. Shout out Joey Babylon. But yeah, so I thought Hagrid was a girl. Which is not true if you've seen the movies. It's like a really big, ogre of a man. And, in college, I used to go to Universal all the time. I was very familiar with the park. And there was this ride called Dueling Dragons, and once Harry Potter World opened, they just rebranded that ride into some Harry Potter themed ride. So I thought that's what we were riding, because it was in the same area. And yeah, it wasn't that at all. It was Hagrid's Ride. I forget what it's officially called, but I'm sure you can easily look it up and figure out what I'm talking about. But it was one of the best experiences of a roller coaster I ever had, because I went into it completely blindly. I didn't know they had just built a new ride. I'd never seen any of the videos of it, none of the ride-throughs. I had no idea what was going to happen. And it was so amazing. So, sometimes going into things blindly can be really awesome and a really great experience, especially for me because, in the past I've had issues with trying to control things and even trying to figure out surprises for myself. I'm hyper aware of everything, which can be good or bad sometimes. So if there's a surprise or something, or I'll catch on to it and then ruin the surprise to myself. So all that being said, I've been pleasantly surprised with this book. And I was so excited last night. I was up till like 2 a.m. reading because I was just so excited about it. And I remember I called Joey Babylon to tell him that I finished another book because before this summer, I had kind of like given up on reading books because I was just like not interested. I would do audiobooks, but I was like, I do not want to sit down and read a book. It's so boring. And I don't have the attention span for it. But, now that I'm sober, I feel more aware and feel more inclined to read a book. And I'm very excited about that. I think it's an important part of my journey because I don't know if I said this in the Cassadaga video. I made a video about going to see the psychic in Cassadaga, and while I was there, she said I would leave my truth behind in writing. And I've always loved writing, but I've had a love-hate relationship with reading, maybe because my ADD or whatever. Sometimes I would sit there and like be reading and then forget what I just read or not be paying attention. But right now I'm in a great place and I have a great relationship with reading. But I kind of wondered, am I really going to leave my truth behind in writing and write books? Because, I was like, I would rather do music or make a film or something along those lines. But I kind of just kept that tucked away. And then I met Joey Babylon, and he reignited my passion for reading and my excitement to read, which I'm really grateful for. And when I told him that I don't really read, it was kind of like a red flag to him, which, rightly so, I guess. But I'm reading now. I've finished 2 books this year so far. And they were not Dr. Seuss books. Yeah. So I would like read books, like start reading books, but I would like get like halfway through and then just stop reading it. I did that with a couple different books. So I want to go back, and I still have some of them, and I want to go back and like finish them. But yeah. Ugh, I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. Ugh, Jesus. Okay. So yeah. So I'm reading this new book about Augustin. He's 24, and he is drinking a lot, and it's affecting his work. And I've gotten to the part where he has an intervention at work, and he basically has to check into rehab for 30 days. And it's interesting reading this book as I'm like doing AA myself, because I'm like reading his story, and I can recognize that he's still in denial about being an alcoholic at this point. And he's excited to go to rehab because he gets 30 days off of work, gets to be away. But I don't think he yet realizes that if he is going to be sober, that he'll never be able to drink again. I think he still is under the impression that he'll be able to drink after he gets back from rehab. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't really know his story, but either one of two things are going to happen. He's either going to relapse when he gets back or be sober. I mean, it's pretty, straightforward. But I don't think he realizes what he's in for. So I'm excited to see what happens. But, the this kind of ties into some experiences I've had this week. Last night I went to my second kind of detox meeting where we take AA meetings into detox facilities or rehabs or like places like that. And I have begun sharing my story because that's part of what we do there. And so the first meeting I went to, I kind of, wasn't being very vulnerable. I was kind of trying to make my story sound good, which in hindsight isn't very helpful to alcoholics who are in detox. They don't want to hear happy ending stories or, like very, whatever. They don't want to hear about me living it up in Hawaii. They want to hear about the truth, and they want to be able to relate to something. So last night I dug a little deeper, reached a little deeper into, my soul, and pulled out more details of my story that maybe I wanted to forget about. But I think sharing the truth is not only going to help me, but help other people as well who may be dealing with the disease of alcoholism, and maybe something I say will inspire them to kind of start their own journey with sobriety. So I'm working on being more vulnerable and kind of, working on the delivery of my story and kind of touching on things that may be helpful for other people to hear. And last night I was very vulnerable and shared a lot more details of my story. And some of the guys we were there with, were like, oh wow, I've never heard your story. And one of them was like, yo, that was really cool. I really related to this. And that was really cool for me. And, nice to hear. Because what I've learned is that even though we all have very different stories in sobriety, we all have like common things that tie us together. And one of those is having this obsession with drinking that we can't control ourselves. So, I'm just kind of realizing these things and becoming more vulnerable. And it's kind of weird because like I feel like we all have our own life path, and like God or the universe or whatever higher power you believe in, we kind of have like this general idea of what we're supposed to do with our lives, or this general plan, and we go through certain things so that we can help other people or like share our stories or whatever. And I feel like I'm getting closer to my path and realizing what I'm supposed to be doing right now and like the purpose of my life, and that's really cool. Because there have been periods of time where I'm like, what is the purpose of life, or what am I supposed to be doing? So right now for me, what I feel like my purpose is to share my story and help other people that are suffering with alcoholism. And I think it's really cool. And I'm really thankful to my friends Dalton and Josh for sending me these books, because I didn't even know they were sending me books, but Josh sent me a text and was like, hey, what's your address? And I sent him my address, and he's like, start with running and then go to the next one. And at first I was like, God, I hate running. I do not want to run. What is he talking about? But he was talking about the book Running with Scissors. I'm very thankful to them for sending me these books, because they're super inspiring, and they're super motivating for me to not only share more of my story, but to start writing my story down, maybe into a book. And I have no idea how to write a book or what the process is like, but I'm just going to start and see what happens and go from there. And as far as like AA and my meetings and stuff, I'm starting to feel more comfortable sharing my story and not being embarrassed because, you know, we all have our own story, and it's kind of selfish to, like, you know, not want to be as vulnerable as other people have been with me, because I've heard a lot of very in-depth and detailed and, you know, vulnerable stories from people in meetings, and they've helped me so much. So it's kind of selfish not to do the same for other people, I think, being a part of this program. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm on my way to check on the kitties. I'm cat sitting for my old store manager. So yeah, I'm enjoying going to see them. One of the cats that I used to cat sit recently passed away, which is really sad. So there's only 2 of them now, and the vibe is a lot different, but, you know, I still have the other 2 kitties to watch. I'm gonna do some reading while I'm there. And yeah, I have hypnotherapy tonight, which I'm excited about. I'm doing it on a different day now so that I can fit in all my meetings and everything. And then right after hypnotherapy, I have a meeting. And then after the meeting, we have our fellowship where we're just going to hang out, play games or whatever. Maybe go to Dave & Buster's, something like that, something fun. And yeah, I'm very excited. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on storytelling and how these books that I'm reading are really, like, you know, aligning with what's going on in my real life, and it's really cool. And I feel really great, feel really happy, and I'm happy to be sober. I'm 57 days sober today, almost 2 months. So yeah, it's going really well. Things are getting easier. Earlier on, it was super difficult, and I'm not saying that everything's rainbows and butterflies, as they say, or whatever the saying is, but each day gets easier, and I'm just taking it one day at a time. So yeah, thank you for watching, for listening. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
All I ever really wanted was my story to be told.